Good evening and welcome. This is News First Primetime News. I am Shahin Jurongpati.
Good evening, I'm Mahina Bongzo. Russia says that its jets are carrying out airstrikes on Islamic State targets in Syria. Now, the News First International Desk will have more on this story.
But first, let's start off with a look at tonight's headlines.
Sri Lanka will deal with the past honestly and will follow the process of truth-seeking, justice, reparation and non-recurrence. A statement from the President at the United Nations General Assembly. US-backed resolution on Sri Lanka tabled at the UN Human Rights Council. Accused in the assassination attempt on former President Chandrika Bandaranaike receives sentences of over 200 years to be served in 30 years. Susil Premajayantha summoned to Presidential Commission of Inquiry. Landslide warning issued for 6 districts extended.
President Maithripala Sirisena addressed the 70th sessions of the United Nations General Assembly in New York today.
On behalf of the General Assembly, I will have the honor to welcome to the United Nations His Excellency Maithripala Sirisena, President of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka, and invite him to address the Assembly.
Sri Lanka remains committed to fulfill this responsibility. In this respect, we intend implementing a new program and plan of action in Sri Lanka to advance human rights. Our new vision for the country involves achieving the twin objectives of sustainable development and reconciliation. A fundamental requirement in this context is dealing with the past honestly and building a modern Sri Lankan nation. In dealing with the past, we will follow a process of truth-seeking, justice, reparation and non-recurrence. All forms of war and terrorism are a disgrace to humanity. The preamble of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights states the manner in which such rebellions break out. Whatever their root cause is, the challenge of this era is to find ways and means to defeat such brutality against humanity. Resorting to terrorism as a means to salve grievances as well as action taken to eliminate terrorism can create problems. Sri Lanka succeeded in eliminating terrorism, which continues to throttle other developing countries extending from Asia to Africa and Latin America. My understanding of sustainable development is not to have sectorally or group-wise isolated development, but to have an inclusive model of development that is capable of uplifting development standards globally. For this purpose, I stress on the need for a fresh universal approach. As we learn from the Buddhist ethos prevalent in Sri Lanka, I recognize there are 3 kinds of human conflicts. The first is the conflict between the human being and nature. We are constantly engaged. The second is the conflict between human and human. Such conflicts occur among. The third is the conflict within the human being. The 2 kinds of conflict I mentioned. The edifice of sustainable development should therefore be built upon the foundation of self-discipline and equity. If this could be practiced at a personal, community, national and global level, it would mark a giant leap forward for humankind. I propose that we as national leaders take cognizance of this self-discipline and equity-based approach when drawing relevant action plans for the future.
විමුක්තිය ලබා දීම සඳහා සෑම විටම කැප වෙන බවයි. ස්තුති පෙරවන් සරණයි.
US President Barack Obama has praised President Maithripala Sirisena's commitment and actions taken for strengthening of democracy and good governance in Sri Lanka.
A statement by the President's media division said that US President Barack Obama had made these remarks yesterday at a meeting with President Sirisena while participating in the 70th session of the UNGA. In response, President Sirisena said his determination is to build reconciliation in the country. When President Sirisena requested for assistance for poverty alleviation, the US President stated his government will extend fullest assistance to Sri Lanka in that regard. President Sirisena had also said that Sri Lanka will be steered onto correct course of development and that good governance program will be further strengthened through the 19th Amendment to the Constitution and the commissions.
The US-backed resolution on Sri Lanka was tabled today. The UN High Commissioner for Human Rights, Zaid Ra'ad al-Hussein, opened the session with a statement to the United Nations Human Rights Council.
The context in which this report is presented is very different to the one during which it was mandated. The election of a new president and government on a platform centered on good governance, human rights and the rule of law presents a historic opportunity to address the grave human rights violations that have racked Sri Lanka and to lay the basis for long-term reconciliation and peace. We are also seeing renewed engagement by the new government with OHCHR and the UN human rights mechanisms. The previous government categorically rejected the Human Rights Council mandated investigation and refused access and cooperation. More worryingly, it resorted to an unrelenting campaign of intimidation and harassment against victims, witnesses and representatives of civil society.
On the 8th of January this year, at the presidential election, when the people voted decisively for change, from a culture of impunity where the rights of the individual had been violated for almost a decade, the people sought a change to a new Sri Lanka, where ethnic, cultural, linguistic diversity is respected, celebrated and valued. Prime Minister placed reconciliation as well as development as the topmost priorities of the government. Soon after the parliamentary election on 17th August, the President and the Prime Minister worked to forge a national unity government that is essential for the political and policy stability required for reconciliation to succeed. Mr. President, the spirit of the government that I represent is to build a nation that is prosperous, a nation where the human rights of all individual citizens are protected, a nation which is a responsible member of the international community, a nation that is confident, respecting the universal values of freedom, equality and justice, and a nation that is at peace with itself and with the world.
The UK strongly welcomes the report of the OHCHR investigation on Sri Lanka. We are encouraged by the initial steps taken by the government since January towards accountability and reconciliation to address the legacy of the conflict.
We welcome the report that has set clear guidelines for the international community and the government of Sri Lanka that should be duly considered on the way towards long-term reconciliation and stability.
It is clear to us that the report's recommendations, including the need for a credible and effective accountability mechanism, are essential elements in the process of promoting reconciliation, accountability and human rights in Sri Lanka in the future.
We commend furthermore the Sri Lankan government's expression of openness to working collaboratively with OHCHR as it establishes for all Sri Lankans a future based on justice, reconciliation, rule of law, and respect for fundamental freedoms.
Meanwhile, issuing a statement, the Chief Minister of the Northern Province, C.V. Vigneswaran, says that he welcomes the fact that the UNHRC is expecting to adopt a resolution on promoting reconciliation, accountability and human rights in Sri Lanka. The Chief Minister adds that the High Commissioner for Human Rights himself had made it clear in his recommendations on the OISL report that a domestic court procedure will have no chance of overcoming the widespread justifiable suspicions fueled by decades of violations, malpractice and broken promises. He notes that the resolution is a step forward, but it is clear that only with the most rigorous monitoring and proactive involvement of the international community will it lead to the kind of progress which all the communities in Sri Lanka deserve.
In another one of our headline-making stories tonight, the Colombo High Court today sentenced two accused to 290 years and 300 years to be served in 30 years in connection with the bombing incident targeting former President Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga in 1999.
The accused were Velayudan Vardaraja alias Udayan and Chandra Iyer Raghupati. Velayudan Vardaraja alias Udayan was sentenced to 290 years, while Chandra Iyer Raghupati was sentenced to 300 years. These sentences are to be served in a 30-year period. The female suspect in the case, Vasanthi Raghupati, was acquitted. The order was made by Colombo High Court Judge Padmini Ranawaka.
My husband and the other were in prison for 15 years. Today I was acquitted. I'm happy. My husband was sentenced to 300 years. I'm sad about that. I will be alone. My children are in India. I will return to my home. There was 4 pounds of gold. We told the SP that gold was there. But he said that the gold was melted during the clash in Balikada. We did not get the opportunity to inform court about it. We have not been given it as yet.
What is interesting here is that persons connected to the crime have not been mentioned in the case. We hope to make an appeal. The 60th anniversary of the Department of Elections was marked at the BMICH today.
The event was held under the auspices of Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe and saw the participation of former Presidents Mahinda Rajapaksa and Chandrika Bandaranaike Kumaratunga, the Elections Commissioner, party leaders, party secretaries, politicians and officers. General Secretary of the Citizens Front and former MP Jaysri Ranga was also present for the event. A commemorative stamp was also issued today to mark 60 years of the Department of Elections, and the past and present employees of the department were presented with mementos.
There are 3 important aspects on the election system. First is, what is the new election system that we will introduce to cancel the preferential vote system? There are signs of a proportional voting system and there are signs of a single vote system. There are issues that need to be resolved. Are we to continue with this in a parallel manner, or are we seeking the final result similar to what is done in New Zealand? We hope to discuss this issue in the coming months and seek a solution by the end of the year. Some call for the amendment to take place before the local government election and the polls to be carried out under this system. Some say that there isn't sufficient time. Some say that this will not be 100% successful. What I say is, if you continue to gaze at it, there will be no success. During the elections, even though we spoke of democracy, the Elections Commission acted in an autocratic manner and provided us with a free and fair election. We retire when we reach the age of 60. Today, the Department of Elections marks 60 years. I assume that this department might retire in a few days when the commission is established. Today, the public opinion is that the election system similar to the one in New Zealand can be brought about through the 20th Amendment of the Constitution or a new constitution. The Elections Commissioner conducts the elections. Then the candidates seek the votes under the law. They make various promises during the election period. However, the Elections Commissioner is unable to keep track if those promises are fulfilled after the candidate is elected. He is involved in the election process. It is Parliament that needs to create the law.
The implementation of the democratic process at different levels is the responsibility of the Department of Elections. They conduct the polls, they count the votes, and they declare the results. So the Elections Department, the Elections Commissioner and his staff become the trustees on behalf of these people of this sacred process of conducting a free and fair election. Fortunately, in this country, though there may have been the occasional blemish, the Elections Department has conducted its responsibilities and duties in keeping with what is expected of them.
Former General Secretary of the United People's Freedom Alliance, parliamentarian Susil Premajayantha, arrived today at the Presidential Commission of Inquiry to investigate and inquire into serious acts of fraud, corruption and abuse of power.
MP Premajayantha was summoned to the Commission today based on a statement made by former President Mahinda Rajapaksa to the Commission over non-payment of outstanding bills to the Independent Television Network or ITN.
මේ මැතිවරණ ව්‍යාපාරයේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් ගන්නවා නම් එක්සත් ජනතා නිදහස් සන්ධානයේ
If you speak of the election campaign, the UPFA account had a sum of less than 10,000 rupees. 140 million rupees cannot be paid from an account like that. There are fundraisers who raise funds during the election period. I have never taken part in a fundraiser, nor have I made any payment using those funds. The necessary action needs to be taken by the committee that was in charge of media and promotions.
කිසිම දෙයක් දන්නේ. තව කීයකට එන්නෝ ඉද දන්නේ. මේවා ඉතින් මේ මම මේ අවුරුදු 10ක් මේ කොළඹ මහාධිකරණයේ අපරාධ නීතිය පිළිබඳව කටයුතු කරපු නීතිඥයෙක්නේ. ඉතින් මේවා අලුත් දේවල් නෙවෙයි අපිට.
With the inclement weather conditions across the island persisting, the landslide warning issued to six districts has been extended. The Disaster Management Centre says that the landslide warning has been issued to the Badulla, Noora Elia, Kaluthara, Gaul, Matara and Hambantara districts, adding that over 18,000 individuals have been displaced. The Holuwagoda Devalegama Road and the Habaradua Happawana Road in the Gaul district were flooded today as a result of heavy rains. Our correspondent stated that since all entry roads to the Opatha area in Bope Poddala Divisional Secretariat were inundated, it was impossible to reach the village. While a number of areas including Opatha, Holuwagoda and Babdegama were flooded, a house had collapsed in the Harumalgoda area in Habaradua. Several families in the Gaul, Vanduraba and the Ihalelwala areas who were left helpless due to flood waters have been rescued by the Vanduraba Secretariat with the assistance of the police. A number of byroads and lowlands in the Nagoda, Udugama, Kurupanava and Mapalgama areas too have been inundated due to the Ging River breaking its banks. Our correspondent in the area stated that vehicular movement on the Baddegama-Udugama road has been hampered as a result. A house in Moragamulla in Udugama collapsed. However, no casualties were reported. Meanwhile, vehicular movement along the Akurasa, Siambalagama, Akurasa Kamburupitia and Akurasa Haldua was hampered as a result of the Nilwala River overflowing. Our correspondent stated that the Valigama, Valipitia, Kokmadua areas still remain inundated. The water level of the Ging River was measured today using a special equipment known as the Big Chart. The Akmimana area in Gaul was also submerged today due to the incessant rains. Landslides were reported in the Kumarikanda area in Kaluthara South. According to our correspondent, several government officers and houses are located at the base of Kumarikanda, and although the occupants of these houses were warned about the risk of landslides, they remained in their homes even at the time of the landslide. However, no casualties were reported from the landslide. Meanwhile, 4 buildings of the Telijavilla Central College are at risk of being destroyed by landslides. The principal of the school noted that due to the risk, a decision was taken to close the school for 2 days for the security of the students. When an earth embankment collapsed behind the boarding room of the school nearly 6 months ago, I informed the National Building Research Organization. They came here, assessed the situation and submitted a report. However, measures have not been taken to remove this earth embankment. We request that this earth embankment be removed and ensure the security of the students. The NBRO has informed the public residing in districts where landslides could occur to remain vigilant. We request the public to be vigilant. If one notices mud, water, cracks on the floor and trees unusually slanting to a side, which are signs of a landslide, please inform the responsible officials in the area. Please vacate the area until a responsible institution provides an assessment. The Department of Meteorology says that rains can be expected tomorrow as well. The atmospheric disturbance is not only affecting Sri Lanka, but is affecting the entire region. We expect a reduction in rainfall in southern and western provinces tomorrow in comparison to the showers experienced today. Thunder showers may occur during the evening in all parts of the country.
The 23rd Annual General Meeting of the American Chamber of Commerce in Sri Lanka, or AmCham, was held in Colombo yesterday.
A new board of directors was appointed at the AGM held yesterday. Asanka Ratnayaka was re-elected as president of AmCham, while Nimal Cook was re-elected as secretary. A number of special dignitaries addressed the event.
This is an amazing region, even without its economic potential. But with its economic potential, makes it a no-brainer for any industry that is seeking new markets. The trends of growth and trade in this region are clear. Economies that are looking outward and offering access to their market by breaking down tariffs and non-tariff barriers and making the domestic reforms needed to ensure their own laws and regulations reflect the realities of the 21st century are on the right side of history. And these economies will create real paths to prosperity for their people. The private sector must take the lead in advocating these issues, and AmChams have and will continue to play a key and central role. These opportunities in this region are limited only by our own imagination.
We now have, at this moment, a golden opportunity to ensure that our bilateral business relations can fully blossom. I don't say this because of some change in American government policy. Indeed, our commitment as a government to strengthening our economic partnership with Sri Lanka is long-standing and has never wavered. My confidence, rather, is fueled by the remarkable changes that have taken place in Sri Lanka, changes ushered in by the voters of Sri Lanka in the January presidential election and ratified by the voters of Sri Lanka in the recent parliamentary election. Today, we have a partnership with a government that shares our commitment to boosting bilateral trade and investment. The people of this country elected President Sirisena and Prime Minister Wickremesinghe thanks to their promise to implement a reform agenda aimed at establishing transparent government. We now look forward to real progress in important economic sectors such as energy, transport, and other areas.
An event to mark the 66th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China was held in Colombo yesterday.
A distinguished gathering participated in the event while the Minister of Ports and Shipping, Arjuna Rantunga, took part as a chief guest for the event.
Sri Lanka is deeply appreciative of the unrestricted support extended by China as an all-weather friend to combat terrorism during a very challenging era in Sri Lankan recent history. In this context, let me express Sri Lankans' deep appreciation to the Chinese government for the assistance to establish a hospital and special research institute for the research and treatment of chronic kidney disease in Sri Lanka, which is an acute health problem affecting many segments of the population in the country.
China is Sri Lanka's friend indeed. Up to now, China has provided quadrilateral loan amounting more than 800 billion Sri Lanka rupees, and donation was over 200 billion rupees to Sri Lanka. The two countries' company has worked together and constructed a number of mega projects which have created more than 100,000 job opportunities for the local people.
Several factions have responded to a statement made by Minister of University Education Lakshman Kiryal yesterday while addressing university vice-chancellors in Colombo.
The government and for me personally, I want to give the maximum autonomy to the universities. As a minister, I will allow you to function without any interference. When the 19th Amendment was discussed, we wanted to have the University Grants Council as one of the independent commissions. That was the recommendation of our party, United National Party. But certain parties in the front opposed it because they wanted to control the universities. So UGC was there in the original draft, but when the final draft came, it was missing. So the policy of the government is to give you autonomy as soon as possible legally, and you must show results.
The University Grants Commission was to be made an independent commission. What happened to that? We condemn the statement that was made. When the primary draft was being made, there were various proposals that were made. We remember the proposal that was made on media restrictions. However, even before these proposals made their way to Parliament, they were discarded after discussions between parties. When this proposal was introduced, he was the leader of the House. He did not raise any questions. However, now he is making such a statement. What is this two-faced policy? It is clear that this statement was made without any responsibility. When the 19th Amendment to the Constitution was passed and presented to the Speaker to be certified, it took almost 4 weeks for the process. It is clear that during that period the University Grants Commission had been omitted from the list of independent commissions. In one hand, the Rajapaksas need to be held accountable for this. The current UGC also needs to be held accountable. We noticed that through the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, the current government attempted to introduce several proposals that were not favoured by the people. There was an attempt to influence the heads of media institutions and the media through the 19th Amendment to the Constitution. The attempt to intimidate the media by any means can be seen as an act against democracy and the aspirations of the people. We made a proposal, but no one knows what happened to that. It is surprising to note that the responsible minister of a responsible government has made an irresponsible statement. The University Grants Commission was to be made into an independent commission. Independent commissions were created in the past, and the issue was, were they independent? On the other hand, there was an attempt to bring in a proposal to take the heads of media institutions before court and make them guilty. The president himself said that he discarded that proposal. That was presented by the UNP government.
A demonstration took place in Jaffna today urging the release of political prisoners. The children of political prisoners also took part in this protest.
The demonstration, which commenced opposite the Jaffna District Secretariat, made its way to the office of the Chief Minister of the Northern Province. The demonstrators presented a letter to the Chief Minister. There is a less number of persons who appear on behalf of political prisoners. The political prisoner cannot afford to spend on persons who seek their release. Therefore, we need to create a method that will see that the lawyers too are paid for appearing on behalf of them. Political prisoners are not persons who violated the law, but they were arrested over a political reason. Therefore, these political prisoners need to be pardoned and released. We hope that this will highlight reconciliation at the conclusion of the UNHRC session in Geneva.
Finally, in international news, a US official has said that Russia has conducted its first airstrike in Syria near the city of Homs. The Russians told the United States that they should not fly US warplanes in Syria, but gave no geographical information about where they plan to strike.
Now, the upper chamber of the Russian parliament unanimously gave a formal consent to President Putin to use the nation's military in Syria to fight terrorism at a request from the Syrian President Bashar al-Assad. And with that, we wrap up today's edition of Primetime News. It is a pleasure having with us for the Newsfirst team. I am Shaheen Jurampati.
And I'm Mahina Bongzo. Good night.